God, Ant, you really did this, huh? Wow, what a start to the day. NFL Draft tonight here on the Team 980. And we are counting down, not to that. No. Anthony, we are so excited to do in an hour and 54 minutes and 15 seconds the final mock draft of 2023.
I'm excited, man.
Anthony and I are going pick for pick. We're doing it. I just couldn't. 2 take command mock drafts.
Yes, sir.
Plenty of time in mock draft simulators.
Uh-huh.
Not enough.
Not enough.
I needed one more.
Yup.
I needed to set the table.
Not 2 more?
No, we don't have time.
Oh, okay.
The draft's at 8 o'clock tonight.
I guess home?
The draft will have started. Mocking during the draft isn't really how that works, Anthony.
You're right.
Our coverage starts following our show at 7.
You're right.
So thus at 6, the literal final hour that you could do a mock draft. See, it's so exciting. My vanity light is raving.
It's the final countdown.
Ba-da-da-da. So that's coming up at 6. For now, though, I should probably start now that I'm not nearly as pretty with my fancy light. God, that's a bummer. I feel like we should start with some thoughts on the draft itself. Here's what I would say if you're a Commanders fan looking at this draft tonight. One, if you're any NFL fan, you're anybody who's going to watch this draft. It'd be really weird if you were not an NFL draft or an NFL fan here watching the draft, but I guess. But if you're watching this draft tonight with an interest in the Commanders, the thing you want is you want the TV, or you want the QBs to fall. You want the Will Levis's, Anthony Richardson's, etc., to fall down this draft board so that they are available for other teams to come up and get. You want one, if not, God forbid, both of them on the board at 16. I do not think you want the Commanders to take them. I am so intrigued by Anthony Richardson, and it's hard for me to say that I think they should pass on him in favor of someone else. But realistically, if they want to give Sam Howell a run, I'm not going to be mad at it. And every indication is that's exactly what they want to do, and probably with good reason. Sam Howell looks like he is a pretty good potential NFL quarterback, and they like what they've seen, et cetera, et cetera. So again, if that's the case and you want to make the run at this, you should equip him / the team with players that are going to help. Getting another guy to battle Sam Howell doesn't help you. Why the quarterback's falling is good is that is the kind of bait that gets a trade down. Again, I've now done dozens of simulations of this draft, and very rarely does a player fall that I think is actually worth taking at 16 when you use the tier system that most NFL teams do. I'm going to say there's about 8 to 9 tier 1 players in this draft. They pick 16th. And there's a really good chance that a couple of tier 2 players that I would have in tier 2, for instance, like Jackson Smith and Jigba, get picked before the last tier 1 player. So maybe Paris Johnson, maybe Peter Skoronski, maybe Devin Witherspoon, maybe Christian Gonzalez falls to 16. And if they do, hallelujah, let's run to the podium as fast as we can and get Roger to announce that name. However, if that is not what happens, taking the best tier 2 player when you could trade back and take another player who you have equal on your board and get an extra pick is absolutely the correct move. Because if you thought one was way better than the other, then you would have them in tier 1 and this wouldn't be a discussion. That's how the tiers work. And so what you need as a team that is looking to trade back is not just, hey, well, this is what the Jimmy Johnson trade chart says. Hey, Jacksonville, Jimmy Johnson trade chart says if we trade you 16, you give us 24 and whatever their second round pick is. We also have to get a 5th that way, or give you a 5th that way it's balanced. now we press go on the deal. That's not how that works. They have to go, well, we don't have a tier, like we don't have a player we want to come up and get, so we're just going to stay here, keep our picks. And we're pretty sure that we're still going to have a tier 2 guy on the board when we pick at 24, which is exactly what you're trying to do. What you need is Minnesota to want a quarterback and to go, holy crap, we can get Anthony Richardson at 16, get Washington on the phone. We can't afford to wait any longer. You need Tampa to get antsy at 19. You need really, what the best case scenario is if you get 2 of those teams where you can have, let's say it's Minnesota and Tampa, to use those 2 examples, going, hey, Tampa, Minnesota also wants to come up. We really like their offer. Throw in your 4th rounder, though, and we'll call them back and see if they're going to match. And if not, it's yours. So that's how you get above value on the trade chart, because someone's got to make a move. And if not, you just pick the deal you like better. But my A-plus plan for the Commanders tonight is trading back somewhere between, let's call it 19 and honestly even 30 with the Saints. My number one guy of that next class of corners is Deonte Banks. We'll talk more about that in the next segment. And then praying that Matthew Bergeron, the offensive lineman who is probably a guard this year and a tackle in the future, is available in the 2nd round, and that's how you fill your offensive line need. That is my A1 scenario. And if you get that, if you're lucky enough that the trade back is far enough that you can pick up a 2nd rounder and you can get, a center or a guard. Steve Avila is a guy that Logan and I were somehow able to get in our mock draft the other day in the 2nd round when we did some 3-round situations. But a lot of people think he's going to go in the 1st round. But, if you trade back to 27, I don't know why Buffalo would trade up, but let's say that's who trades up, or 28, 29, somewhere in there, and Avila's on the board, and they take him. I'm not mad at that either. You get the best guard on the board, whether you think it's him or Osiris Torrance. That's great. But where the strength of this draft is that accumulating picks in that 2nd round range. If you can get a couple of extras there, done. Where this draft is weak is exactly where the Commanders are stuck. So we'll have to see how this plays out. But the thing you're rooting for is someone that is good that the Commanders don't need falling down the board so that they have a trade partner that someone is wanting to trade up and take that player. That's your rooting interest. Now let's set a board. Top 5 offensive linemen, top 5 corners. That is where we go next, because those are the 2 positions that we think are most likely going to be, or one of them will be the Commanders' selection in the 1st round. I'll give you my top 5 O-linemen, top 5 corners next. It's draft day on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. So, coming up, 6 o'clock, the last mock draft of 2023. Anthony and I are going to go pick for pick. In order to do that, though, we got to have a board. And I figure I want to do two things over the next 30 minutes or so. One, I want to try to get through both the top 5 offensive linemen and top 5 corners. And then in the next segment, I want to try to get through the top 5 other players that we think the Commanders could be drafting tonight at 16 or elsewhere in the first round. Will Bijan Robinson make that list? Will Dalton Kincaid make that list? We'll get there coming up at 4:30. Also this hour, the one segment we're going to do today that's not NFL adjacent, not NFL draft material, the Giannis clip that broke the internet, his response from last night, I think it's really interesting. I don't fully agree with everything he said. I also don't disagree with where he's coming from. I think it's a fascinating look inside the mind of one of the best athletes on the planet, who also has one of the highest characters of one of the best athletes we have ever seen. So we will get to that coming up at 4:45. But for now, top 5 offensive linemen, top 5 cornerbacks. Anthony, which one do you want to start with? Which one's more interesting to you, corner or O-line?
More interesting? I would probably say cornerback is more interesting just because I feel as though we know who the top 2 are. I think it gets a little bit more interesting when you get down to 3, 4, 5, and maybe 6.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Although, I mean, to me, actually, offensive line is more interesting because nobody agrees on any of it.
Yeah.
But we can definitely save that for last. Okay, let's go corner first. I would say my top guy is Gonzalez. But it's really 1A, 1B. And I said that out loud, and then I cringed because I was like, ugh, do I really not want to put Witherspoon 1? Witherspoon allowed 1 completion all year, something ridiculous. His man-to-man cover skills are outrageous. He's a little small, though, and there are questions about does it translate in zone coverage as well, where Gonzalez seems to have everything. Premier athletic profile, has played man, played zone, maybe a little more versatile. So, if Witherspoon gets to the right spot, I think he could be an all-pro. If he gets to the wrong spot, someone's going to wonder why they took him in the top 10. That seems to be the read on Witherspoon. Gonzalez, I think, is a little bit of a safer pick, but could be every bit as good. So I'm going to go Gonzalez 1, Witherspoon 2. I am perfectly happy taking either. Either of them, though, is in the sprint to the podium with the card category if he's on the board for the Commanders at 16. No doubt about it. My third guy is going to be the Terp, Deonte Banks. I think the athletic profile he has, and this is, I will say, this is my top 5 for the Commanders, right? So I think Joey Porter Jr. is really intriguing. He's got great length, good physical attributes all around, but he's played a ton of press man, and there's real questions about how, kind of the same stuff that William Jackson III struggled with, right? And it's not that people watch him and go he stinks, but in zone, but we haven't seen him play nearly as much of it. And there are questions there. Banks has played a little bit more in a similar system to what's here in Washington. I love the athletic profile. I mean, there's nothing not to love there. His raw athletic score is nuts. He's got size. He's got length. I'll go Deonte Banks 3rd. I will say Joey Porter Jr. 4th. And then Emmanuel Forbes. Oh, I really struggle with 5 and 6. 5 and 6, my 2 guys that I'm considering are Emmanuel Forbes, who production-wise is probably better and has a better pedigree and is universally thought of to be the better corner. I'm looking just to make sure I don't forget any names at Scout Sync List on ESPN.com. And they've got Forbes 3rd. They love him. But Julius Brents out of K-State, I'm going to quote Logan here, is Benjamin St. Just. He's like, it's not like he's like Benjamin St-Juste, Anthony. He goes, he is Benjamin St-Juste. Size, length, some of the similar questions, but some of the similar upside. And for this, this is where I would say Brent's in the second over Forbes in the first, right? Like, for a value position, I'd probably take Forbes. But the question is if you trade down, let's say you're sitting there at 28, right? You trade down, both of them are on the board. Those are your best options. Man to man, who do you pick? Screw it, I'm going to say Brent's. I think, and I'm going to say this, I think they would take Brent's. I think he fits exactly what they want. And the idea of playing a guy like Danny Johnson's size in Forbes is a little scarier. So that's my top 5. It goes Gonzalez, Witherspoon, Banks, Porter Jr., Brent's, then it would be Forbes, and then Tyreek Stevenson out of Miami.
All right, so we're going to disagree on one because I'm going to go with Devin. I did it again, Craig.
At least that one, you started talking, and look, bro, it happens. The problem was 2 days in a row, you were not on the mic. Mic was off.
Yep.
You turned it on, and the first thing you did before you talk was,
I definitely did do that.
Not great. So you like Devin Witherspoon?
Yeah, I like Devin Witherspoon, one. And obviously, yes, he is better in man coverage, but not every, he's not going to go to a team where they only play man defense. He's going to have to play some type of zone defense. So I think he will be able to adjust, but he's also more versatile, I think. I think he can also play the slot. He can play outside. And I think him being able to, diagnose and key up different plays and things of that nature is why I have him one. But primarily is the fact that he can play the slot. I think the slot is the toughest position on the field.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of, I'm glad you mentioned that. Another guy to watch later, a guy that Logan and I kept staring at in the third round of our 3-round mock situations, Hodges Tomlinson, who is probably best fit in the slot. You get him later, and he probably, no pun intended, slots in right away as your starter. Mm-hmm. Because the idea that you're going to here's the problem with drafting an outside corner, and I will say this, Kendall's not moving back inside.
Nope.
That's a bad idea. The last time he was in there, it went poorly. This is not 2016. So if St-Juste, who looks like money outside, their whole defense changed last year when he shifted outside. Fuller's outside. Are you taking the rookie and sticking him inside? Are you just waiting until someone gets hurt? It's a little different problem than the offensive line where it's okay, well, someone will play left guard. Whether it's Wiley, whether it's the rookie, whether it's whoever. You have a spot on the O-line. You don't have a spot at corner outside. There's only 2 of them. There's a boundary and there's a field. And there's boundaries on either side. You can't stack 2 on top of each other next to the white line. Someone's got to play in the slot. And I don't know if they look at a guy like Banks in the same way that they looked at St-Juste. They're like, you are freakishly athletic, even though you are larger than the average slot corner. Although that's changed too, right? The profile. Yeah. And I will say this, if you wanted to really trick up this list, what I would do is probably after Banks, maybe even before Porter Jr., but probably after, I would stick Brian Branch in there and call him a corner. Because that's a guy, if they take Branch at 16, I'm not going to be mad about it. There's a lot of players I would not be mad about at 16. Branch is one of them.
So let me finish my list because he makes my list.
There you go.
At 2, I do have Christian Gonzalez. Again, outside guy. He has the size, he has the speed, he has the length. He has all the intangibles that you want in a cornerback. At 3, I would definitely go Deonte Banks. I think he's also like Christian Gonzalez, but I think he's lacks maybe the ball skills to an extent. At 4, I do have Brian Branch. I have Brian Branch at 4. Again, his versatility is what sticks out to me the most, and just being able to plug and play in the slot position. At 5, I have a guy in Emmanuel Forbes that can take away the ball. I think he does. He is a little small, and that is worrisome. But
production's insane.
Exactly. Being able to intercept and turn over the ball, I think is huge at the next level, and
yeah,
that's why.
So here's the problem with Forbes: he can't play inside.
Yeah.
I know traditionally people used to think of slot corners as like the little guys.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys get crushed in the run game. And he's a willing tackler, but he's 165 pounds.
Yeah.
Anthony, how good do you feel about taking on an offensive lineman?
Not strong.
Yeah. Well, he's probably smaller than you. Are you 165?
I'm about 160.
Yeah.
And if I had to take a tackle,
could you take on 5 pounds to beef up and be ready for NFL offensive tackles?
Even if I put on 5 pounds, I would still get escorted out the club. No question. They are picking me up and escorting me.
You, sir, are not allowed in here.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the problem with Forbes in the run game. And that's why Branch is appealing, because he can get in there and mix it up.
Mm-hmm.
So those are our top 5 corners. Coming up next, we'll breeze through I don't know if we'll breeze through them. We'll do our top 5 linemen. We'll eventually get to our top 5 other players that we think could go to the Commanders at 16 as well. And I do want to try to get to the Giannis thing this hour. So we'll try to make it all work. It's the Hoffman Show rolling along on draft day, Thursday, April 27th, first round tonight. By the way, our draft coverage brought to you by MGM, or TAP at MGM National Harbor, continues next on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live as well on YouTube, youtube.com/@theteam980. What's up to everybody watching on the stream? I will say that is definitely where you're going to want to be at 6 o'clock if you're listening on your way home. Get home, 6 o'clock, fire up your smart TV, go to youtube.com/@theteam980, and you will be able to watch us do our final mock draft of 2023, the final mock draft of 2023. And what we'll do is, again, it'll be fine to listen to on the radio. It'll be very fun if you're driving around, you got a long commute, you just started, or you're planning on listening on the Odyssey app, whatever, as you walk around your house. Like, the audio will be fine. But if you want to be able to see the big board and see the picks and everything, we will have the war room, if you will, up on the screen. So get home, fire up your smart TV, fire up your laptop, watch on your iPad, whatever it is, youtube.com/@theteam980. Make sure you are subscribed as well. Okay, Anthony, top 5 offensive linemen for the Commanders in the 2023 NFL draft. You want me to go first again, or do you want to throw yours out real quick?
You can go first.
All right, I'm going to start with Paris Johnson, which is a little controversial, I feel like, because I also really like Peter Skoronski. I think most people like Peter Skoronski. PFF has him as their number 5 overall player. They've got Johnson at 16. But Paris Johnson, like Skoronski, has some position flex. In 2021, he played 768 snaps, every single snap he played, at right guard. He played left guard some in 2020. He played left tackle last year, and most people think he will ultimately graduate into a tackle. To me, he is the perfect guy for the Commanders. The problem is he might go 3 to Arizona if they don't trade out. And if they do, well, if he's still there by 11, which is where a lot of people think they could trade into with Tennessee, then it would seem likely that they would draft him at 11. But if somehow, some way, he can fall to 16, I think the Commanders need to jump on Johnson. He can play guard this year. Next year, you can give Charles Leno the boot and let his contract expire and move Paris Johnson out, and he's your left tackle for the next decade. That's the plan. That's what you do with the guys you draft 16. That's a great use of that pick. I think you could say similar things about Skoronski. However, the upside is not nearly as high. Skoronski has sub 33-inch arms, which is very, very short for a tackle, much less big of a deal inside because you're very compact in your space. Tackle, you have to long arm guys. You have these speed rushers. Can you keep them off of you on the edge? A lot of people think he can make up for it with his feet and his quickness, and he's a good player, really good player. But most people see him having a lot more all-pro potential at guard, where Paris Johnson could, if he hits a ceiling, pan out into a really, really high-level left tackle. From there, that's when it gets that's when it gets hairy. I think most people have Broderick Jones next. I don't. I think that there's some questions there that I'm a little make me a little unsettled. I think I'd rather take the risk on Darnell Wright. I know who he is. He's a big, nasty dude who shut down some of the absolute best players in college football, including Will Anderson this year. Anderson had one of his worst games against Darnell Wright at Tennessee. He's got a really high pass block grade last year. His run block grade is not great, but the nastiness, you feel like with some better coaching and technique, he ultimately will improve in that area. He did not give up a sack in 2022. He only gave up 2 quarterback hits all year. He is probably a right tackle. He did play left in 2021, but he's probably your starting right tackle tomorrow. You then kick Wiley into guard, whether you kick him to left guard or you kick him to right guard and have Cosme go over and play left. So I'll go Darnell Wright. I think at that point you kind of have to go Broderick Jones, the upside. And then a guy that the league seems to be way higher on than most is Anton Harrison out of Oklahoma. Again, he's played a lot of football, started at left tackle all 3 years, did play a little bit of right tackle this year as well. allowed only 1 sack the entire year. And going back to even to his freshman year, allowed just 1 sack. Graded out really, really well based off PFF's grades. He's a good run blocker. Like, to me, he's just a really good football player who the league seems to be a lot higher on than than a lot of like the media folks who do the mock drafts. So I would go Johnson, Skoronski, Wright, Jones, Harrison. And if you were stuck at 16 and you can't trade back and they took any of those guys, I'd probably be fine with it. All right, Anthony, what you got? Your top 5. Wow, well, ladies and gentlemen, I just feel like you should know. Anthony just sneezed and then turned on his mic.
Yes, sir.
As opposed to what he's done the last couple of days where he has had some kind of cough, clear throat, sneeze right into the microphone as soon as he's been summoned right into your ears if you're listening on headphones. We're so sorry about that.
I already told you, Craig, I'm still learning the tricks of the trade
Yep.
in year 4.
Year 5 loading.
Yes.
We're just going to get a picture of you with some weights loading.
Yes, sir.
All right. Top 5 offensive linemen. Go.
All right, so I agree with you on the really the top 3. I do have some questions about Darnell Wright just because of the offense that they ran at Tennessee. We were talking about this a little earlier with Hendon Hooker. But they did a lot of, like, RPO. So, defensive ends, they weren't allowed to, just pin their ears back because they still had to adhere to the run. So that's my only, like, real concern about Darnell Wright, the kind of offense that they were in. But you already hit the nail on the head in terms of, he did, limit Will Anderson to a terrible game against Tennessee. So I do have Darnell Wright at 3. Then I go Broderick Jones at 4. Big guy. I don't necessarily like the fact that he can be, beat with, like, counter moves and things of that nature.
There's some holes in his game.
Yeah. But he is, again, a huge guy. And I think
monsters human.
Exactly. So I don't think you can, like, just not even, like, pay attention to that. And then 5, I would probably go Anton Harrison as well.
All right. Other guys that I like: Cody Mauch, Matthew Bergeron.
I know you love Matt.
Yeah, I mean, he's the captain of the Syracuse football team. How could you not? He's played guard. He's played tackle. If you can get a corner, first round, Bergeron, second round, home run. We're done. A draft grade from me. That's what I like when I do the mock drafts. That's what I aim for. How do I get that? And then can you get like Luke Whippler or someone like that? Joe Tippmann. Tippmann's probably not going to go to the 3rd, but like, can you get one of the centers to fall to you in the 3rd round? Like, that to me is the best thing. Corner, offensive tackle, center. But what about other players that they could take? Here's my top 5 other players, just pure guys that if they fall and are available at 16, I am not going to be mad about if they take him. Number 1 is Bijan Robinson. I know that is incredibly controversial, but it should not be controversial to take a guy whose comparisons are Adrian Peterson. If he is going to be a 2,000-yard rusher, league MVP, and be around for the better part of a decade, he breaks every single worry you have at running back. The biggest worry at running back is not production necessarily. It's longevity. And so if you think that you can use him in a way where he's still productive in years 5, 6, 7, if you think he's built different in the way AP was, then I think it's actually worth it to take him at 16. He's also a guy that has some versatility, can line up in the slot. Now, a lot of people will tell you that the difference in production you get from him to another back who you might take in the 3rd or 4th round, or certainly to Jahmyr Gibbs, the second back, isn't worth it. I get it. I'm telling you, if he's Adrian Peterson, it is. The chances that he is, obviously, slim. AP's arguably one of the 5 best ever. But if he's going to be that good, like if he comes up short of his potential and is only LaDainian Tomlinson, like,
that's pretty awesome too.
Yeah, sign me up for 10 years of that. So Bijan is that. Next group of guys are the edge rushers. Nolan Smith, Lucas Van Ness, Miles Murphy. I'm good with taking a good edge because of where they're at contractually with Chase and Montez. They put themselves in this position. I'm not endorsing that, but you do need not just someone who can be kind of your third pass rush guy potentially this year who can spell, you trust James Smith-Williams and Casey Toohill for sure on first and second down. Could you get a really spicy pass rusher for third down situations? Get you some depth in case Chase or Montez is hurt or misses a game. And obviously ensure yourself for next season when ultimately one of those two guys won't be here, even if you do get the other one signed on an extension. I'm good with that. So Bijan, then I would say in order, Smith is so intriguing. I'll even take the flyer on the athletic profile there. Van Ness just seems like a super solid guy. He's not as much pass rush juice, but just he's not going to bust, which is a good thing to get in your first-round pick. And then Miles Murphy is another interesting one. He's kind of fallen down draft boards a lot, but ultimately is still super intriguing. And then the last guy that I would say, if he falls, I am interested in. Well, I guess I technically didn't say Brian Branch earlier, so I'm going to say him here. I didn't put him on my corner list, but I would say he is super intriguing for me because he's just a football player, right? Like I say that because I don't know exactly what his best position is, but this defense has space for that. If he and Cam Curl can become interchangeable parts, that is a nightmare for a quarterback to figure out who's doing what, and it allows them to adjust on the fly way better. I know they really like Percy Butler, and I know they love Derek Forrest, as they should, but I think there's room for Brian Branch on this football team, so I will say those are my 5. Anybody that I didn't say, Anthony, that you want to highlight?
I'm interested to see what Michael Mayer lands.
I am too.
Very.
I purposely did not say tight end, though.
Oh.
So I'm glad that you brought it up so I can say why I don't want a tight end. Because Logan has 11 starting caliber tight ends in this draft. Do not take one in the first round. You can get one later, and there's a really good chance that the guy you get later is just as good as the guys at the top. Unless you are sold, unless Eric Bieniemy himself is sold that Dalton Kincaid is Travis Kelce 2.0, or Michael Mayer is Travis Kelce 2.0, a.k.a. might be the best tight end ever and is going to the Hall of Fame, please, Lord, do not take a tight end in the first round. Find a way to take something else.
I'm not going to lie. Michael Mayer is built like Gronkowski. And, again, you did say if he doesn't have Hall of Fame written all over him, don't take him. But I think that guy's going to be special.
If you think he's that, like if that's their eval and they're like, this guy's insane, fine. If not, please be smart about positional value. Do not take a tight end in the first round.
But I agree. Don't take a tight end in the first round.
But it's kind of the same thing as Bijan. I just believe that Bijan's that guy, and I don't think that, like, there's a really good chance that Sam Laporta is better than either one of those two dudes.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get Laporta at 47. Go take him there. Go take your Hall of Famer in the second round. That's a play. If you can do it. All right, it's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. When we get back, Giannis had the internet explode this morning. Everybody loves what he said post-game last night after he was asked if this season was a failure. I didn't. Explain why next.
Here's what's trending on the Team 980.
Every team that could have gotten eliminated last night almost did. I guess the Grizzlies staved it off, but Knicks eliminated the Cavs. Bucks eliminated by the Heat. Warriors pull ahead in that series 3-2 over the Kings. That sets up some game sixes. Lakers try to close it out at home tomorrow. Warriors try to close it out at home over the weekend as well. And, of course, the NFL Draft, main topic tonight. That starts coverage at 7. The draft itself starts at 8 here on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And ladies and gentlemen, on draft day, we have breaking news.
Breaking news. Oh, snap, news is broken. Breaking news.
Anthony, why don't we let Adam Schefter tell the people this just moments ago on ESPN's NFL Live.
Major breaking news. Sources say Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens have agreed to terms on a brand new contract extension. This saga, which has been ongoing for weeks, months, years, is expected to be over. This should be announced shortly by the Baltimore Ravens. A bombshell right before the draft. These two sides have been in intense negotiations for not just the last several days, but really the last several months. Once Jalen Hurts got his deal, Baltimore stepped up, offered more, and essentially made Lamar Jackson an offer he could not refuse. At long last, the Baltimore Ravens are locking in their franchise quarterback, and it is Lamar Jackson.
All right, that actually Ian Rappaport on NFL Network. So we do not know the figures yet. We got
more breaking news.
Oh, we got more breaking news. Anthony, what is the breaking news now?
Rappaport, he just tweeted out, it's a 5-year deal for $260 million for Lamar Jackson, the new highest paid QB. We still don't know the guaranteed money yet.
So that is going to be the crazy thing. By the way, this was announced by the Ravens. Basically, like, I guess they were about to send out the press release, and they texted Ian and were like, hey, buddy, you want to break some news? Here you go. It's about to be announced. Because the Ravens, like, already have graphics and tweets out and everything. They put out an official announcement. It's a 5-year deal, $260. That is $5 million in total money, total potential high-end money. Then Jalen Hurts, who got 5 for $255. So obviously, this is an extension as well. Or Hurts's, I should say, was an extension. Lamar, I'm going to guess this is just a regular deal. Like, he's not going to – this will override the $32 million franchise tag that he was going to get. But the real question is, what does he get in terms of guaranteed money? There have been reports that the Ravens had offered over $200 in guarantees, which would be the most in guarantees ever. And I guess now, Anthony, you just keep refreshing till someone gets the guaranteed money. But, like, this does provide a lot of clarity for tonight for the draft, too. Like, every time that I did a mock draft, every time that I saw a mock draft, every time that I did a simulation and thought about who might want to trade up. So, like, Richardson falls, Levis falls, Stroud falls. I'm on the clock as the Commanders at 16. Do I call Baltimore and go, hey, do you want to come up for a quarterback? How good do you feel about getting Lamar? And I guess I doubt they'll do it. There's no way if they got to figure it out, they'll do it next year. If Lamar like just sits out the year, they're going to be really bad. Maybe, who knows? They wind up getting Caleb Williams or something crazy next year. But now Lamar set. I think that also obviously could set the table for a DeAndre Hopkins trade. There's been a lot of rumors about that. Was Hopkins waiting and / did the Ravens want to wait to make sure that they had the money to absorb Hopkins' contract? One of the good things about getting Lamar done is I would be stunned if his cap number doesn't come down for this year. Typically in the first year, there's a very low base salary because the player's fine with it. The player's like, I just got all of my signing bonus, which I'm assuming this is going to be like an ungodly amount of money that Lamar's about to get a check for. And so if his base salary in the fall is $2 million, like, he doesn't care. He just got 70, 80, 90 million, whatever it is that's guaranteed at signing. So that number, though, gets spread out over the course of the 5 years in terms of a cap hit. And that low cap number in year one can help, acquire a guy like DeAndre Hopkins. They obviously already signed Odell Beckham. And all of a sudden, if you have Beckham and Hopkins, and I would guess that signing Beckham, by the way, helps Lamar be like, yeah, I definitely want to be here. Like, because there was kind of two conversations happening simultaneously. One of them was financial, right? And that's the main one, right? It's I'll get to in a second. Can you find a number that's agreeable to both parties? They do. He signs the deal. The other is the feelings part. Like, how agreeable I am to a number depends on how good I feel about being able to accomplish what I want to accomplish with the group of people that I'm signing that big check for. Or I guess they're signing that big check to me, that I'm signing up for the big check for. And when you don't feel like they've helped you, they don't feel like they've supported you from talent at the receiver position, and they go invest big money in a guy like Odell Beckham, even if it's a short-term contract, they were willing to do it. They were willing to show that love and be like, hey, Lamar, we want you and we hear you. We're taking it seriously that you want to be here. So that's the breaking news. We're still waiting on the guaranteed money. We'll have more information probably, honestly, by the time we get back from the break. Also, when we get back from the break, Nicki Jhabvala of the Washington Post will get her reaction and then dive back into what the Commanders are looking at tonight with the 16th overall pick. Again, the breaking news, Lamar Jackson, 5-year deal, $260 million in total cash. We'll see what the details are as we go. Hoffman Show with you on the Team 980 and always live as well on the free Odyssey app.
10.
It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. NFL Draft Day. We are streaming live on YouTube as well, youtube.com/@theteam980. Coming up at 6 o'clock, you will definitely want to be watching as Anthony and I do the final mock draft of 2023. We do have breaking news, though, if you were just tuning in. Lamar Jackson has agreed to a 5-year deal with the Baltimore Ravens. He is staying put. It is the largest deal in NFL history. To get more reaction on that and circle back, obviously, to the Commanders and what they do tonight, let's hit Not My Beat.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not My Beat.
Nicki Jhabvala, Washington Post, is with us. Nicki, how are you, ma'am?
I'm great. How are you guys?
Oh, always good when you have one of the busiest days of the year and then you get a nice heaping scoop of breaking news on top of it. We're thriving. That's what live radio is at its best.
Plenty to talk about.
Indeed. So just real quick, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, what's your reaction to the Jackson news? And also, do you think it affects the draft tonight at all?
Yeah, impeccable timing by the Ravens.
Yeah.
I mean, on the surface, just seeing the reports of the terms, it kind of looks like they just took the Jalen Hurts deal and tacked on a little bit more to make him the highest paid. But I think it's great. I mean, to me, I felt like that's where it was headed all along. Like he would ultimately stay with the Ravens. I just didn't know if it would be on a long-term deal or, he would play on the tag begrudgingly. But glad it worked out.
Yeah, it was one of those things as I was doing all these like mock draft simulations and stuff too. I get to the Commanders at 16 and have no one really left that I wanted to take and want to trade down. And you look at Baltimore, if like a Will Levis was on the board and you're like, I don't know, could they? Now that's off the table, obviously. But I was listening to you with John the other day on Kimes Pod, and you kind of said the same thing, that there's a really good chance that trading down ultimately is the best scenario for the Commanders. Do you have a team or a couple of teams that you think could be likely targets to trade back and exchange spaces with?
Yeah, it's hard to say because I think that it kind of all depends on how the board falls. It sounds so cliche, and I hate even saying that. But it is kind of true in this instance. I could see a couple teams wanting to move up, obviously, but, Houston is one that kind of intrigues me just because I don't really know where they're at. I mean, I've seen all the reports of could they take a quarterback, could they take a pass rusher, what will they do with their other pick? Like, I just don't know. So they're kind of a wild card to me, but trading back is just, it's hard to say right now, but, I think they might have their options. I don't think it's as easy as people think. Like, you do have to find a partner. You have to find somebody willing to, bite the bullet and move up and part with those picks. But, I mean, that would be my preferred scenario because otherwise I think they go O-line or one of the two corners I know they like.
Yeah, I'm assuming that you're talking about Gonzalez and Witherspoon, the two corners that everybody likes.
Well, yeah, but they have no shot at either of those. It's, it's more, if Forbes is there, Witherspoon will be long gone. If he's not, something's terribly wrong with the entire league. But if Emmanuel Forbes is still there, do they look at him or do they go with one of the tackles that they really like? So we'll see.
So Forbes is super interesting because he is 166 pounds. I don't want to short him that 1 pound. He is 166 pounds, which to me says he has got to play outside because if he's stuck at the nickel spot inside, he's going to get wrecked in the run game. He's too light. It's just hard to play that position in the modern NFL. So that does beg the question, like, what do they do if they draft Forbes or one of these other corners that also is best suited outside? Because it's, everyone that wants to kick Kendall back inside seems to think it's 2016. Last time Kendall Fuller played in the slot, it did not go very well. So what would be kind of the grander plan if they go corner in the first round?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I do think that still is a possibility. Yes, he's played better outside, much better outside. You could also look at possibly moving Benjamin St. Juice back inside, but I think that ultimately, you view your long-term future with your younger guys on the secondary, and that would include Benjamin St. Juste on the outside. I think they would rotate a lot, too. You look at your safeties. I mean, is it possible that Percy Butler could play in the slot? He's more of kind of that center fielder, post safety. Derek Forrest could certainly play some. And their slot a lot of times is their Buffalo nickel, just in their 3 safety sets. So you could look at that group, too. But, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, they did pick up Cameron Dantzler yeah, that's right. Yeah, they picked him up in the offseason, so he could be another one that could be in the mix. So get a couple Mississippi State corners back there.
There you go. Notoriously fantastic defensive team. Not so much in the SEC. Nicki Jhabvala with us here on the Hoffman Show. Of course, you can read her work, WashingtonPost.com/sports. So let's say the tackles are gone, the corners they want are gone. What are the other positions / players that you think they would be genuinely interested in, and do you think those players are good or bad ideas?
Yeah, I mean, people don't like to hear this because they've taken so many first-round defensive linemen over the years, but, all their defensive ends are set to become free agents in 2024, so I could definitely see them, probably looking at the edge position in the first round. Maybe they could move back. This is one where they could kind of trade back. Maybe look at that Miles Murphy and collect a couple other picks to round out their haul this year. I put this out there, a bunch of haters out there on Twitter, but I would love for them to trade back, get an edge guy, be it Miles Murphy or whoever they like, pick up another second rounder and get your O-line and your corner in the second round. But, we'll see. I mean, I just think you have depth at corner, so you can wait a little bit. If the guy you like isn't there in the first round. And I do think there's some really good interior linemen in the second round. I really do like that Cody Mount from North Dakota State, but they do need a tackle, and that's a premium position and definitely one you would like to take in the draft. They have Charles Leno, but he's getting older, and if they move Sam Cosmi inside, they really need that right side guy. So they have options, but if they do trade back, I mean, I'm partial to defensive line, especially on the edge. Interior, obviously, you don't need that. We're talking ends. Right.
And that makes total sense to me, whether it's Murphy, whether it's Lucas Van Ness, who's less likely, obviously, there if you trade back.
Yeah.
He seems kind of one of those, the top options potentially of a stick and pick situation where you're just stuck. You can't find that trade partner, and he's the best player on your board at 16. Obviously, quarterback being on the board at 16 it's great for us in the radio business. It's great television. It's great drama. But it's probably best for them if someone wants to come up and take one. Is there any chance, though, that they would poke around? Is there one that they really like? For instance, do you make anything of the Albert Breer report that Marty Herney particularly would push for Anthony Richardson if he fell to them at 16?
I mean, I would not discount anything. I don't get the sense that that's where their focus is going in. But I wouldn't discount anything. If they fall in love with a player right there and it just so happens to be a quarterback, then I would encourage it. I mean, I don't know how many people want to hear that. I do know they like Sam Howell a lot. They really want to give him a chance to become the starter and a long-term starter. It was their goal in the offseason to kind of keep that room relatively inexpensive so they could build out the rest of the roster. But, if a guy like Anthony Richardson is there and Marty does love him, or, they feel strongly about Hendon Hooker, and I don't think he'll be there, honestly. I've always been of the mind until you have that clear guy at quarterback, then you keep swinging. So I don't think they'll do that, but you never know in the draft.
Nicki Jhabvala, Washington Post, with us here on the Hoffman Show for another few minutes. Obviously, yesterday, the big news that they declined Chase Young's option, even though a lot of us thought it was coming. It seems to me like a no-brainer, even though the number is 24, not 18, like I initially thought, which would make it even more of a no-brainer. But even at that $24 million number, to lock that in next year when he's had the career he's had so far doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. But what does this mean for his long-term future with the franchise, Montez's long-term future with the franchise, and how those two things are tied together?
Yeah, it's a prove-it year for both of them. It's a prove-it year for the entire staff, entire roster, given the ownership situation. but especially for those two, I say let them duke it out, and the best one gets the next deal, essentially. I do know they'd like Montez Sweat, but, Chase Young proves to be the more productive pass rusher this year, and he looks more like he did in 2020 than, this is a guy they drafted number 2 overall. So, I don't think this is by any means, a split for Chase and the team. This made financial sense for them, and on paper, no disrespect to Chase Young, but he's had 9 sacks in 3 years. So it should not have come as a terrible surprise to most people. I get that it did, but it should not have. Ron kind of hinted at this as early as February, and usually when he does that, his mind is kind of made up at that point. So it's going to be a big year for those two, no doubt. For the team as a whole, of course.
No doubt. All right, last thing for you. Any other storylines for whatever reason that may interest you that you are interested in with the draft tonight?
With the draft, I want to see how many of those quarterbacks go in the first round. Very curious how many tight ends go in the first round, too. It's a pretty decent class, but I'm always interested to see how the rest of the league values them. And then I also want to see where Bijan Robinson goes. I mean, he's heck of a talent. There's that camp that thinks you should not draft a running back that high, but it's kind of the mind that he is an exceptional talent and he's a very good football player and should be taken high. So I'm curious to see kind of where he goes and kind of the fit for him. So those are some of them. I'm trying to think if there are any other good ones. I really just want Cody Mauch to come to Washington. He's my favorite player in this draft.
Yeah, him and his lack of teeth. Get it official.
He's delightful. I just would love for him to come here.
I mean, if you're in the sales and marketing department over there and you want to prove something great to the new bosses, get that guy a dental sponsor. And then, hey, I'm the guy who got Cody Mauch the dental sponsor. My job is safe.
I want him to fully, forevermore to embrace the no teeth look. He kind of hinted he might,
Yeah, but you can be missing teeth and still have good dental hygiene.
Correct. Yes. I mean, it's I guess the unibrow for him is his no front teeth.
Yeah.
You can make a lot of money off of it.
Totally. This is the analysis that people come to the show for, Nikki. So
exactly. Hard-hitting journalism. Courtesy of the Washington Post. You're welcome. Please subscribe.
I was going to say, courtesy of this show, 4 to 7 every day. So I guess you're welcome anytime. Nikki, thanks so much. Always appreciate it. I know it's a long night out in Ashburn typically, so hope the picks come quickly and then we get to do it all again tomorrow.
Sounds good. I appreciate it.
You got it. Nicki Jhabvala, everybody, with us from the Washington Post. Subscribe to the Post. Read her work, WashingtonPost.com/sports. When we get back, Anthony, now we're in a little bit of a funky zone because we got the Lamar stuff that's happening. We got the Giannis thing I didn't get to. Let's do this. Let's open up the phone lines. 301-230-0980. Scott Jackson's going to join us at 5:30. But Lamar Jackson, 5-year deal, $260 million. What do you think? That's simply the question. What do you make of the breaking news? 301-230-0980. It's the Hoffman Show, taking your calls next on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Breaking news about 45 minutes ago, the Ravens have agreed to a 5-year contract with Lamar Jackson. Jackson, of course, the 2019 NFL MVP. He is now the highest paid quarterback in the entire NFL. We are waiting, of course, for the guaranteed money and all of those details, but ultimately, real quick delay. I just saw a tweet from AJ Perez. Apparently, the Josh Harris group has not been declared the outright winner, or even though he has not been declared the outright winner, his $6.05 billion bid to purchase the Commanders is being reviewed at NFL HQ like it's a done deal. Sources told Front Office Sports. Minus a setback, owners expected to vote next month. So kind of an update that's not really an update, but worth mentioning. But reacting to the breaking news, Lamar Jackson is the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. Ravens get this deal done. 5 years and $260 million. To me, this is a smart deal for the Ravens to do and would be kind of a silly deal for almost anyone else in the NFL to sign Lamar Jackson to. The Ravens have more information on Lamar than anyone else by nature of the fact that they've been his employer for his entire career. He is someone they know from a personality standpoint. And honestly, most importantly, when it comes to Lamar, he's someone they know from a medical standpoint. They understand the risks of him more than anyone else, which I do think it's telling that they from go have said, like, he's our guy. Steve Bisciotti, the owner, certainly has had his reservations by fact that this has taken so long. But it's very clear that Lamar Jackson was the guy they wanted all along. And they have made a commitment to Lamar unlike most organizations have ever made for their quarterbacks. Now, granted, he is a guy with a very unique skill set, and your more traditional drop back passers that fit the mold of the NFL don't require the same level of unique structure that Lamar has needed over his career to be as successful as he has. But now is the test. Now is really, okay, we paid you. You are ready to move beyond the structure that Greg Roman had you cooking with to winning records, tons of production, and an MVP award. You didn't like that. By the end, you want to be seen as more than a runner, which, like, if people are paying attention, they know he is, but they really want to, run something that's, different than, I guess, the very unique offense that Roman's been running there very successfully over the last couple of years. And we're going to give you the wide receivers, but there's going to be drawbacks eventually. Like, this is the nature of these contracts. This is what Seattle dealt with Russell Wilson. If you are paid this much, by nature, you don't have as much help around you as the contract hits the big years, right? This year, they can afford Odell Beckham. They can afford the O-line that they've had. They can afford Mark Andrews. They can afford the defense that has been good. They paid Roquan Smith, etc., right? Cool. Great. What happens when Lamar counts $50 million against the cap instead of 30 or 20 or whatever he winds up counting this year? That becomes the question. Because the difference in, a $30 million cap hit and a $50 million cap hit is 1, 2, or 3 really good football players, depending on what position. Like, it's the ability to pay a left tackle or not. It's the ability to pay a safety and an inside linebacker or not. Depending on, again, the caliber and the position, like, I'm talking a couple starters potentially. And so the reason that it's worth it is because that quarterback can more than make up for that if he's that guy. And in order to be that guy, you have to be on the field. And that's where Lamar has struggled the last 2 years. He's been really good when he's been out there. His numbers, really, really solid. Throwing for a bunch of touchdowns. Hasn't had a ton of picks. Still an effective runner. Yardage is solid per attempt. But now he's got to commit to being on the field as much as he can possibly control that. there is a level of responsibility that comes with these contracts that frankly very few quarterbacks can ever live up to. Even someone like Aaron Rodgers, who won multiple MVPs, do you look at and go, well, in the playoffs, he came up short or they came up short because they didn't have enough? Would they have been better off if they had more talent? Of course. And Aaron's got to play at such a superhuman level that he overcomes that. That's what makes Mahomes so special. Mahomes' playoff production is outrageous. He also, by the way, signed a contract that's super funky in structure and is going to allow the Chiefs to probably do things over time. But like, it's not coincidence that Tom Brady's got more rings than everyone else, and he took discounts his entire career. They had more depth in New England than any team with Tom Brady should have because he refused to take the most money. And that is not me saying Lamar Jackson shouldn't get paid. Anybody who is labor should always, in theory, try to get the most. He deserves it as much as anybody in the league, right? Him, Mahomes, Burrow, like those guys that are elite at that position, that sell tickets, that put butts in seats, make the money for the league, not to mention play an enormous role in winning, deserve the most cash. But I do think there's an interesting discussion to be had about quarterback contracts and value. And when you look at Mahomes, you look at Brady, and you look at the success rates compared to other guys who have gone for the most money, is that when we get to playoff time enough to tip the margins? And if you're a player, are you willing to take a little less, have the union be mad at you, potentially have other players be mad at you that are quarterbacks that also want the big money, to say, well, I'm just trying to win? Because unlike our jobs, where if I ask for more money, it doesn't really affect anybody else in this building in terms of winning. Or most companies, if you work at a big giant conglomerate with tons of resources available, like, you get paid what you get paid. You know, a lot of folks listening might work on commission. You get paid what you earn. There's no salary cap that artificially restricts. I guess that's probably the bigger difference, right? Like, sure, everyone's got budgets. There's only a certain, money is, and salary is a finite resource that every company has. But it's not artificial in the way it is in the NFL, where you are strictly limited, and the more you cheat the system by getting guys to play over their value, that's not really cheating the system. The more you maximize the production per dollar, the better off you are. And so when it comes to team building, like, this is the question. Can you do it with one of these big contracts? Are they actually worth it? Or will you merely be very good every year but not good enough to win a championship? I don't think we have a definitive answer on that. And I think what the Ravens just guaranteed is that they're going to be in contention every year that Lamar is healthy. And I would say the same, by the way, for Burrow and Herbert when they signed their deals. I don't mean that as a particular shot at Lamar, even though that is obviously a concern that's elevated with him, not because of his style, but because of what he has gone through the last 2 years where he's been hurt. But is it worth it? History would suggest it's pretty difficult. But I would also counter-argue that anyone who's got one of those guys that's worth that contract is probably going to be in the mix, and you can't win it if you're not in the mix in the first place. So it winds up being better than the alternative, which is essentially getting lucky. Getting lucky is not a plan. It's something you take advantage of when it happens. Signing Lamar Jackson is a plan, and the Ravens finally got their guy. 5 years, $260, the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Back to the NFL draft next, although we will ask Scott Jackson, who is hosting our coverage tonight, his thoughts on the Lamar deal as well. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Tonight, it is here, the NFL Draft, the first round. Our coverage is going to be anchored by Scott Jackson starting at 7 o'clock. The picks start at 8. Now we got an added layer of intrigue and storylines to talk about with Lamar Jackson being extended by the Ravens. And as I said, our coverage will be anchored by the one and only Scott Jackson, who joins us now. Jack, what's up, man? How are you?
Good. Just enjoying the slow roll in 66 East, trying to get to the station.
How slow of a roll? Any chance that I'm going to have to stay past 7, or we feel confident that the roll is fast enough? Okay.
No, the roll is fast enough. No, we're good. We're actually almost hitting 40 miles an hour now. So no.
Ooh!
Yeah.
Don't get too excited now.
I know.
So I've hosted the draft the past couple of years, and I always think it's a really interesting event to prepare for because there's just so much information. As you resume your hosting duties tonight, I assume that you've definitely done this before, if not many, many, many times. How do you prepare for an event so unique or as unique as the draft?
Well, I mean, for us, obviously we're more Commander-centric. So, I'm kind of looking at it from their point of view, but also obviously like everybody else, dealing with the quarterbacks, Bijan Robinson, where he's going to go, like the main storylines too. I think a lot of people are looking forward to tonight. So, yeah, I mean, I've seen more mock drafts than I care to admit to at this point, Craig, and I'm just getting so annoyed with all of them at this point. I don't know why. I just can't do it anymore. It's just like it's enough. It's like time to draft already. And obviously part of the story tonight would have been, what happens if one of these quarterbacks is sliding back there and it gets within striking distance for the Ravens, right? If this Lamar Jackson thing was still hanging out there. But obviously that is now off the table, so we don't have to speculate about that anymore. But I'm just excited that it's happening tonight. Interested to see what's left when we get to 16, assuming, the Commanders are still sitting there and not moving back, or if they find a deal that would work for them.
Yeah, definitely. Is there something that you would like to happen? Like, is there a guy that is realistic? Like, yeah, Will Anderson falls. Cool. Got it. Get to the podium ASAP. I mean, there's some other guys that I think are a little more realistic, but probably not very. The two corners, for instance. But is there a guy that you think there is a chance and that you are very much rooting for to be available at 16 for Washington?
I just want to know, okay, like if Robinson's available, okay, and it's, you can talk yourself out in a million different ways, but it is all about winning now, making Sam Howell as comfortable as possible. You can't convince me if they didn't have a guy with his talent, his skill set behind him, and an Eric Bieniemy offense that wouldn't make Sam Howell a hell of a lot better, the whole team a lot better. It actually helps your defense too. I think it'd be intriguing because, again, it goes against everything you've learned in your life, what the Shanahans have taught you about running backs and value and all that stuff, although the Sun went up this year and spent a lot for Christian McCaffrey, but that's besides the point. But you know what I'm saying? So I think that's fascinating, but at the same time, I also look at it like in the years, like Andy Reid's always had badass running backs that are all-purpose, and most of the time, though, he has not spent high on them, right? Like, so usually they haven't spent high on them. I think that's interesting. I think if they have the option of all three corners, I'm fascinated to see which route they go, whether it be Porter, Banks, or my favorite guy, Forbes, because I actually want somebody that can actually, take the football away and do something with it. So I'm not as scared about the 166 pounds as some other people. So I think that's interesting. And, it's boring, but offensive line, clearly there's still a need here for a tackle. So even though it doesn't sound sexy, I think it would be certainly a smart decision if they were to make it there. But again, those are a couple things, those two positions I just mentioned, corner, O-line, they might actually be able to handle in the second round or later.
Totally. I mean, my preference is corner first round, O-line second round, not just because of where he went to school, but I really like Bergeron in the second round. He's got some guard tackle position flexibility where he could start at guard and then eventually kick out as a long-term tackle. I mean, obviously the glory version of that is a Paris Johnson if he somehow is available at 16 out of Ohio State. But the thing, I was just talking about this with Nicki at the top of the hour. The thing I don't understand about corner for them is how do they actually align it week 1 if Fuller is still here? Because St. Juice seems to be locked in outside. Fuller was not very good last time he played inside. And a guy like Forbes, like I like him too. You can't play him at nickel. He would get destroyed in the run game just because he's too light. And that's the only place where the size like really matters to me. So that's my only thought. Like I agree upgrading at corner seems like the right play. I just don't know what you do with the pieces that are already in place.
Yeah, and, Porter's interesting because he's really more of a man guy. It feels like we're having that William Jackson conversation all over again for a team that obviously doesn't play a ton of man. But Forbes, man, the ball finds him. I don't know. For me, like, if you're a ball hawk, I mean, this is supposedly the way he's been since the day he started playing corner in high school. And again, once he gets in his hands, he knows what to do with it. I don't know how they see Dantzler, if he's anything. I mean, they picked him up, obviously, off waivers from the Vikings. I don't know. It's a good question you bring up. I did hear you talking to Nicki about it. And here's the other thing, though. I mean, can you really say St. Juste is locked in for 17 weeks? I mean, seriously. I mean, have we seen that yet?
Right. Well, there is that.
Again,
but, injuries happen, and you should plan for them. I just don't know if that plan should be, hey, we're going to draft a guy in the first round because our starter's definitely getting hurt.
Well, I mean, this guy can start for you, though. I think you go with that mindset and you figure the nickel stuff out. And, again, and I think what Nicki said is true. They get a lot of options to Buffalo, and they might go that route with it. Who knows? But I think, again, you don't outside of Fuller, who's the ball hawks in your secondary, right? I mean, Fuller is it. I mean, St. Juste is still waiting for that first interception, college or pro. I mean, and then that's what, and then Banks, by the way, and Porter combined have 2 interceptions in their careers in college. I mean, I don't know if that's always a measurement for NFL success in terms of takeaways, but it's something. I mean, you play that many games, eventually you got to find the football. So maybe you could say, well, they're just picking on Forbes. I don't know, man. Watching his tape, and by the way, he does come up in run support. It's not like he's running out of bounds when they're coming his direction. He gets his head in there. I mean, he's not scared. I give him that. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting option if it happens. And again, they may be more of the offensive line mindset at that point when it gets there, or maybe they're going to shock us all and go something, do something wild like go end. Obviously, because there could be a reason for that with what's going on, with them not picking up Chase Young's option, and we don't know about Sweat beyond this year either. But Miles Murphy, who knows if they traded back potentially? It'll be fascinating to see kind of how these pieces fall into place. And, if you're the Commanders, I think you're hoping the quarterback slide a little bit too, because that will give you some options in terms of, maybe finding somebody who want to move forward.
Scott Jackson hosting our draft coverage tonight, tomorrow. He's got Denton with him tonight, Linnell tomorrow here on the Team 980 starting at 7, following us both nights. That does bring up a great point, too, of what happens before them obviously shapes everything. And I started the show with that, Scott, of if you're the Commanders, you hope the quarterbacks fall because that seems like the most likely position that someone is going to want to trade up for. So let's say like the first 5 to 8 picks. I'll draw the line in Atlanta at 8. What are some of the things that you're looking for that you really want to see happen through your eyes if you're the Commanders?
Well, I want the C.J. Stroud scare, smear campaign to be real, I guess. Like whatever has been said about him over these last couple of weeks, some of it seems kind of hard to believe at times. But now you're like hoping if you're the Commanders, okay, hopefully that impacts him some way or another. And that's really how teams are looking at it, because I think that would certainly be interesting if he were to get towards the latter part of the top 10. Hooker, if everybody's been as excited about his, medicals as they say they have, obviously that could bring interest in him. If Richardson's still hanging out there at that point, Will Levis, it's weird, this betting odds thing off of a Reddit post. I don't know what the hell to make of that. I mean, he would have been off my board as soon as he put the mayonnaise in the coffee. I mean, I would have been done with him.
Clearly. We can't be having mayonnaise in coffee. No.
That's just awful.
Sherry Burris has a saying that I love, which is "Don't yuck someone else's yum." That's a yuck for me. I'm sorry, I'm breaking the rule.
There's nothing good about it. No. Yeah, there's nothing good about that. There's that, the frozen banana thing or the banana peel part. Okay, maybe it's good for. I don't know. It seems weird. Seems like a choking hazard. Seems like a choking hazard to me. But whatever. I could have lived with that. But when he went to the mayo and the coffee, he was off my board. So
yeah, we got real decision-making questions.
Exactly. These are decision-making things. But no, I would say that would be what you would want to see, right? We all know. We all feel really good about Richards with Bryce Young going first, and then after that, say, we don't know because the big mystery of what Houston's doing. They're playing, hide the draft pick at 2 at this point, having everybody guessing. So, from there, obviously Arizona could go a lot. They seems like they would want to go defensive end, but who knows if one of the quarterbacks, if it is, the Texans in front of them taking a DN, maybe they look for an opportunity to move backwards, as well for one of the quarterbacks. But yeah, I mean, if people are cool off of the QBs, I think that's obviously the biggest thing that would help the Commanders as far as, being able to get some draft stock moving backwards.
Yeah, definitely. All right, last thing for Scott Jackson, and then he gets to rest up his voice and as he plots down 66 and comes in and hosts our coverage tonight starting at 7. Is there a player that you would riot over, where you're just like, if they take this guy, I am fed up, I'm done? I mean, obviously, you'll still show up and do the show tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll still show up and work, yeah.
Yeah, but they pay you, so, that's how that tends to go. But a guy where you're just like, please, for the love of it, whatever deity you believe in, do not take this guy in the first round.
Wow. I really thought, there's nobody, it wouldn't make any sense, if Jalen Carter were to fall, right? If Jalen Carter had a Warren Sapp kind of night, or worse, right? If he fell all the way to them, that would just be silly, right? I mean, it would just make no sense because of what they have invested in that group already. That would be the only one, and I wouldn't necessarily, stop watching football over it. But
I'll tell you mine. Mine is Kincaid or one of the tight ends.
I don't like tight end at all. Yeah, that's a good one too.
Yeah, unless you think that dude's going to the Hall of Fame. That's my thing with Bijan. If they take Bijan and they think he's going to be Adrian Peterson, okay, fine. You took a running back in the first round.
Sure.
Gosh darn it, he might go to the Hall of Fame. But tight end, I don't feel like any of those dudes are that level. And I've said this stat a million times now. Logan's got 11 starting graded tight ends in this draft. 11.
Yeah, you can go late. Does he like Zach Kuntz from ODU, I hope?
I think he likes all of them. I think that's the only way you get to 11 is if you like all of them.
No, I like that. No, I mean, and you're right. It just look at the tight ends that have been drafted over these last few years. It's hard, man. It's a position. I'm not going to put it on the level of quarterback, but it feels like we have a bust-out level that's pretty close to it. And it's these guys that are not making the impacts right away. It takes them some time to get to make an impact in the league in a lot of places. So and people always point out that obviously Kittle and Kelsey were not first-round picks, but now that because of them being taken in the first round that aren't at their level.
Right. And look, tight end is a super valuable position. I love a great tight end, but the point is you can get them later, and there's, they're much more interchangeable than a lot of other positions. And also they got a bunch of traits guys that are super intriguing as prospects already in the building. I know they like them maybe more than the outside do or public does, but also would have helped if they used any of those guys last year. So if you're not going to use them, then also, okay, now we're talking in circles and Scott Turner's been fired, but we get the point. Scott Jackson, he gets in tonight, gets going at 7 o'clock, hosting our draft coverage with Denton Day. Linnell's got the late night duty to follow, and then Scott and Linnell have the second and third rounds tomorrow. Scott, always great to have you on the show, and I guess I'll see you in person when you get in.
You'll see you shortly, Craig. Thanks a lot.
All right, you got it, man. Scott Jackson, everybody with us here on the team 980. When we get back, speaking of decision making, your boy made a dumb one today. I'll tell you about it next. And then at 6 o'clock, the last mock draft of 2023. Anthony and I are on the clock for the entire 6 o'clock hour on the Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. I am Craig Hoffman. He is super producer Anthony Haney. And we are streaming live on YouTube as well at youtube.com/@theteam980. If you are watching us there, make sure you like this video, this live stream. Voila. And you are subscribed to the channel. We don't want you to miss anything that we post. If you do, obviously, it's hard to watch a 3-hour show every day. We post some highlights on the Team 980's page. I post some as well. YouTube.com/@CraigHoffman as well. Click over, subscribe there. And I will suggest, I won't do this often, but I do think that the experience of watching the show at 6 o'clock is going to be one that is worth switching over to, because we are going to go into the war room. We are doing a mock draft, the last mock draft of 2023 at 6 o'clock. If you're in your car listening and you're like, well, I'm on the Beltway, bro. I can't just flip over to YouTube. I don't want to cause a wreck. Yes, please do not cause a wreck. It will be fine to listen to. It will still be highly entertaining, the usual good stuff that you are used to from this very high-quality radio show. But if you are watching on YouTube, you will get to see the board, and you will get to see, obviously, the picks that have been taken. So following along will actually have a visual component to it. So if you want to get home, instead of flipping on ESPN for their 2-hour pregame show, you can flip on your smart TV, hit YouTube, go to the Team 980. If you're subscribed, it'll pop up immediately to show that we're live, which is also nice. Then you can watch Anthony and I make these picks. I will also tell you that if you do want some different coverage tonight in the digital space, we have a show through Odyssey Sports, 2400 Sports, that I will be joining after the Commanders pick. Brian Baldinger, Jason Lockenfora hosting. That will be on the Odyssey Sports YouTube page and streaming live on Twitch. So plenty of coverage, listening, watching, etc. tonight. Real quick sidebar, just because I got to get this out. I need to refresh our minds, Anthony, before we get going on this mock draft at 6 o'clock. Your boy pulled a big dum-dum today. Big dumb idiot moment.
Was it dumb enough to make dumb of the day?
I don't know. Also, hot take. Chris Russell's dumb of the day is I don't agree with today.
Okay.
The language that Marley Rivera used to get fired from ESPN, not great. But that is a woman who has been through some stuff in her career, faced a lot of sexism, faced a lot of stuff, and she probably doesn't get. She's probably been called stuff either exactly that or similar to that, and the man who did it didn't get fired, and the woman who she called that is probably not getting her fired if it wasn't the wife of a baseball PR executive. That's crap. I wish ESPN had a little more backbone there. So, yeah, I guess you do get dumb of the day if you call someone what she called them at work, but I don't know if it should have been automatically a fireable offense. That's just reading some reaction from around the baseball world, specifically from other women who cover baseball, and think Marley is fantastic. I'll say that. Mine would have been a lot more lighthearted. So, I got this triathlon coming up in June, right? We've talked about it. So,
Yep.
It's a sprint triathlon. I am not doing an Ironman. An Ironman's insane. Do you know the distances on an Ironman triathlon, by the way?
I don't.
Like, you do insane stuff and then you run a marathon. That's what you do. It is a 2.4-mile swim, a 112-mile bike ride, and a marathon. In that order. That is a full Ironman triathlon.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. 3 things that I couldn't do. Actually, I could if you had to pick one, would you do the 2.4-mile swim, the 112-mile bike ride, or the marathon?
I would do the marathon.
Really?
I will only do first of all, I can't swim. How many miles?
2.4 miles.
Yeah, I can't swim 2 miles. And then biking, 112 miles is insane. And I think I could walk periodically throughout the marathon. Granted, it might take me all day, but, I'm going to get through it eventually.
Yeah, I would probably – I mean, it would depend on the course. A 100-mile bike ride, if you have any kind of hills –
You're going up hills, down – like –
that would be awful. But, I don't know. God, a marathon's tough. I don't know. I don't want to do any of them.
You can walk, though, during the marathon.
That's true. I mean, I guess that's the thing is, you could coast on the bike if you caught a hill, but if you then get stuck going uphill, there's only so slow you can go.
Exactly.
Maybe the marathon is the right answer. Yep. So an Olympic marathon is 6.2 miles, 24.8 miles or 6.2 mile runs with 10K, 24.8 mile bike, 0.93 mile swim. The 10K run is definitely the right answer there. I mean, a 25-mile bike ride's not bad. That's not bad at all. Yeah, I mean, it's still intense, but it's not as easy as 10-mile or a 6.2 mile run. Especially if you're just my goal is to finish and not die. Yeah. I can tell you a little bit about the 1.5 kilometer swim, because in the sprint distance, it's half of all of that. It's a 400 meters, or it's actually even less than that on the swim. It's a 400-meter swim, a 12-mile bike ride, and a 5K run. That's what I'm doing. I'm doing the little baby guy. And so I finally today got in a pool for the first time in all my training. I had done a couple of stints in the endless pools at my gym, but I got in an actual pool today for the first time. And for some reason, Anthony, in my head, I said, I got to do 800 meters. That's what I got to do. Now, were you paying attention? Do you remember how much I just said I have to swim?
You said 1.5 miles.
No. That was the Olympic distance.
Oh.
I have to do, or that was 1.5 kilometers. I had to do 400. Today I swam 800.
Uh-huh.
That freaking hurt. And let me tell you, when I got out of the pool, I was so discouraged. I was on the verge of tears. I was upset because I was I thought I could do this in 10 minutes, and this took me I've got to go twice as fast. My shoulder felt like it was going to explode. My core was on fire. And then I texted Rachel, and I was I think I made a huge mistake. I can't do this. And then I was wait, how long is the swim? It's 400, not 800, isn't it? And then I felt so good because I hadn't trained at all, Anthony. And I'm actually at the time I wanted to be at. Imagine if I trained for the next 6 weeks.
That's really good then.
Yeah.
I can't do that at all. I can't come close.
I still think I'm wearing a swim cap wrong. I gotta figure out some of the details. And I gotta make sure that my goggles don't fill it with such amateur stuff.
Yeah.
But I made it, and now I know I can do double the swim.
That's
so I feel proud. But there was that moment I was so defeated, and then I felt like such an idiot. But when you're wrong and you feel dumb, but you're wrong in a way that benefits you, you don't really care.
Yeah.
That was how I felt today.
We love to hear it, man.
We love to hear it. All right, when we get back, it is time. We're loading up the mock draft. We're going in the war room. Anthony and I are making picks. We don't know which teams we're picking for yet. We're gonna flip a coin. Whoever wins gets to pick if they want 1 or 2. Obviously, number 2 also comes with number 16 for Washington. So that is next. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live on the free Odyssey app and streaming on YouTube, where you can watch us draft next.
Listen to
It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. I'm Craig Hoffman. He is Anthony Haney. And Anthony, it is time to draft. The last mock draft of the 2023 NFL draft season happens right now on the Hoffman Show. So this is how this is going to work. Couple of ground rules. Anthony and I are going to alternate picks. We're going to flip a coin. Anthony, do you have a coin?
It's a great question, Craig, but I do have a bottle cap.
We have a bottle cap. We have these Nationals fedoras, the cherry blossom fedoras that were brought by.
I gotta get dressed.
We could flip a fedora. It works a lot better if the paper's out and your headphones aren't on. I can do one of the two right now. But if you that's a great look, Anthony.
Hey, look, not a lot of people can do this, Craig.
No, that's fantastic. Like look at you. I think with the paper is really, honestly, a very nice touch.
Yes, sir.
However, we go back to our war room here. We can flip a fedora or we can flip a bottle cap, figure out who's got the number one pick. They also do virtual coin flips on the internet, so we could do that if we need. Point is, we're going to flip for the number one pick. Trades are allowed in this mock draft.
Yes, sir.
The both parties have to agree. Even if I'm trading with myself, Anthony has to approve it, just to be like, yes, that's a trade that makes sense. And you have to be trading up for someone. So I can't just be like, I don't really like who's on the board here. I'm gonna punt this pick to someone else and trade down. I have to be like, I am trading up with this team for this player, and it has to be something that makes sense based off team needs. PFF's got some stuff that we might have to force override trades, but hopefully it's one that they agree with as well based off their system. So anything else we should say off the top? If not, let's get to it because we're already running behind on
Let's
time.
get it, baby.
All right, Anthony, how are we doing this bottle cap flip?
Here it is right here. So this right here
Okay.
is heads,
Okay.
and this right here is tails.
All right, you're just letting it fall. Or are you
Yes.
catching?
I'm just going to flip it.
Okay. I'll call it in the air. Tails. By the way,
On heads.
Okay, so do you want pick 1 or pick 2?
I would love. Oh, do I want to pick for the Commanders?
I think you and your Washington Commanders gear do.
All right, I'm going to go 2 then, baby.
All right, you've got number 2. That means I've got number 1. I'm on the clock. The Carolina Panthers with the number 1 overall pick select Bryce Young, quarterback out of Alabama. He's the best quarterback in the draft. It is a no-brainer. I'll be stunned if that's not actually the pick tonight. That is why they traded up. If he was a little bit bigger, he might be seen as like a generational talent, according to some analysts. That's it. That's all. We don't need to waste any more time. Bryce Young's the number 1 pick. Now let's get weird. You've got the number 2 pick with Houston.
Let's get weird, dog. Houston selects Will Anderson Jr., defensive end out of Alabama.
You're just going for it.
Yes,
all right. I love this pick. That is who I think they should take as well. I loved Landry Locker on our show yesterday saying that it would be like D'Amico Ryans drafting D'Amico Ryans, which he's one of the best players in franchise history. Seems like a good guy, and they're not going to be good this year no matter what. So as long as that's the case, why not just be bad this year, get some guys who can help you around the margins and will be good players for you in the future, and set yourself up to get Caleb Williams or Drake May next year?
Yep.
Like, to me, that makes sense. All right, 3 is where this draft gets super weird. I'm gonna propose a trade here, and by the way, we do have an official trade noise, official trade sound. If you know, you know.
Ring, ring, ring. Hello?
I'm going to propose a trade here, Anthony. You ultimately have to approve it as, let's see if ultimately PFF also agrees. I'm going to say the Tennessee Titans come up. Yeah, they are going to let me do this. Come up from 11.
Yep.
With 3. They're also going to have to give up 41 to do this and a second rounder next year. I feel like that's a fair trade. 11 first and second round, or first round swap, second rounder next year. Do they need the first next year? Let's say that's a little rich. Maybe add in a 4th this year. That seems fair. That's a lot for Tennessee to give up.
The thing is, you're trading up to 3, so you got to be willing to give up something.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe you do like a
first.
I'm not giving up 2 firsts. I'm not giving up my first next year.
Yeah.
Now, of course, if you also would like to ring the trade phone,
Ring, ring.
Nope.
you've got Indianapolis at 4.
Yep.
But I'm
curious to see who you're willing to take. I'm thinking my guy is still going to be there.
the other one where this could get fun is, do you put Derrick Henry in the trade?
Whoa. Are you going for a complete rebuild?
Maybe. I'm going to take him out of the trade. Let's unselect that. All right. That's the trade offer. 11, 41, 147, and a second rounder next year for the 3rd overall pick. Calling all other NFL teams. Anybody else want to come up and make a selection? Trade phone is silent. Offer trade. Trade has been accepted. The Titans are on the clock. And with that 3rd pick, I am going to want him to be. Willis was a bust. Can they do it with Richardson? I think they're going to try. Low-key, I kind of hate that for Richardson. I wish he was land somewhere else. But that's what I think happens. That's what I would do. That's the pick.
Craig, just like I thought, my guy was still going to be there. There's been a lot of speculation about him not, being the brightest guy because he had, low S2 scores. So with the 4th pick, the Indianapolis Colts will be taking quarterback out of Ohio State, C.J. Stroud.
All right, C.J. Stroud. And let's close out this top 5, and then we'll take a break and come back. I tend to think that if the board falls this way, they just take the best player on the board. They just take Jalen Carter. Pete Carroll has taken guys with character questions before.
Mm-hmm.
Let's make it simple. Jalen Carter, number 5 to Seattle. It also does fill a bit of a need for them, as they could definitely use some defensive line help. All right, so that means when we get back, Anthony's on the clock with the Lions. 3 quarterbacks already off the board. We'll try to get picks 6 through 15 next. 6:30, Anthony picks for the Commanders. It's the last mock draft of the season, and it's happening here on the Hoffman Show. Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming on YouTube. We got a bunch of people watching the stream right now for our mock draft. The last mock draft of 2023. By the way, people on the stream, Anthony, loving the fact that we are not taking the entire 10 minutes allotted for drafts or draft picks to happen to actually take our picks. Anthony's also wearing a Washington Nationals cherry blossom fedora. It still has the paper on the inside of it. It somehow still looks fantastic.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, you're on the clock, sir. To recap, for those that can't see, because obviously if you're watching, maybe hopefully your screen's big enough that you can see this here, the players that have been picked. Bryce Young, 1. Will Anderson, 2 to Carolina and Houston. Tennessee trades up to 3 to take Anthony Richardson. Kay was asking on the stream, would you include Malik Willis in that trade? No, I would not. I would not take that back. If I was Arizona, I'd be like, you can keep him. That's just fine. Unless you want to attach another pick, which Tennessee's not going to want to do. C.J. Stroud then goes 4 to Indianapolis, 5 Jalen Carter to Seattle. Anthony's got the even number picks. I've got the odds. Number 6 on the clock. Anthony, you've got the Lions.
Sir, the Lions, the Detroit Lions will be taking Devin Witherspoon, cornerback out of Illinois.
Great pick. He seems like a Dan Campbell guy. They obviously just traded Jeff Okudah, who they drafted in the top 5 a couple years ago, and someone who had been starting at corner for them when he's healthy. Still, the most amazing thing to me about Jeff Okudah is he somehow has played less games. Like he has played less snaps than Chase Young. Crazy. Because Chase obviously has barely played. All right. That then leaves to me one of the most intriguing teams on the entire docket. The Raiders are the Raiders, and thus they could do freaking anything. And if Will Levis is still on the board, I'm not going to lie, man, I'm kind of tempted to do that on their behalf. They also need O-line help. They also could use defensive line help. I could see them going any number of directions here. I'm going to do the thing that seems the most logical, and I'm going to go O-line. I also want to see what happens if Levis slides, if I'm being completely honest. And I also don't know that I think McDaniels thinks he can win with Jimmy G. And if that's the case, why would you take a quarterback in the first round? Like this is part of the problem. There were obviously many problems ultimately with Dwayne Haskins being drafted by Washington. May he rest in peace. But Jay Gruden was fighting for his job and thought he had a roster he could win with, and then it just needed a couple more pieces. And then they used their first pick on a quarterback who was for a future that they didn't need to plan for yet. Turns out they did need to plan for it, and there was a lot of change coming. But at the time, that pick was super agitating to the coaching staff. And in year 2 for Josh McDaniels, I just don't think they're going to be looking quite that far ahead to the future because I think they feel like they can win now. So if that's the case, I've got a decision between Peter Skoronski and Paris Johnson. I'm going to go Skoronski for Vegas at number 7. I don't love it. I consider a trade here, but I also don't have anybody of my teams later on that is dying to trade up at this point. Anthony, are you going to set off the trade phone here?
No.
Okay,
No.
Peter Skoronski out of Northwestern is the pick. Number 8. This is actually one of the teams I wanted to pick for.
We could have switched in because I would have loved to pick for the Raiders.
Oh, who would you have picked if you had the Raiders pick?
I would have probably gone Christian Gonzalez, to be honest.
Ooh.
I think they need help in the secondary. They have a great, fantastic defensive front. They generate a lot of pressure, but secondary-wise, they don't generate any turnovers. They only got 6 interceptions last year as a defensive unit.
That would have been a good pick. That would have been a good one. I mean, it's hard to be mad at arguably the best O-lineman in the draft when you need O-line, which they do.
Yep.
But that would have also been a good pick.
Yeah.
Gonzalez has been mocked to Atlanta relentlessly.
Yeah, and I think since you didn't take him, I think that's where I'm going to step in. Because at first I had somebody else, but Christian's still available. So with the 8th pick, the Atlanta Falcons will be taking Christian Gonzalez, cornerback from Oregon.
If I had them, I probably would have taken Bijan. I know that sounds crazy.
That's who I had.
But they're going to run the ball more than anyone else in the league.
For sure.
And if they can turn their running back from a 1,300-yard back, 1,200-yard back just off system alone into an 1,800-yard back, that seems worth it to me. Atlanta's one of the teams that I would seriously consider going running back in the top 10 if you think he's that good.
And Cordell Patterson also only has 1 year left on his deal, so Got to figure out some.
Yeah, like they have
Yeah.
good backs.
Yeah.
What would happen in that system if they had a great back?
Yep.
And what better thing could you give Desmond Ridder?
A running game.
Yeah,
Running
I mean, yeah, that's to me. I would have probably done that. But Gonzalez is a good pick. All right, 9. Skoronski's been the guy here a lot. Obviously, he's off the board. They could use a lot of different stuff. Let's see. We're gonna hold on. We're gonna do a little bit of diving here. We're gonna stop down on the Bears for a second. They need interior guys. They need where's the edge? They need edge guys, and they need offensive linemen. This is rich for Kalijah Cansey. I mean, this was a team that was obviously rumored to be involved with Daron Payne. If he hit free agency, obviously Payne did not. I just think from a positional value standpoint, if I'm them, I would consider trading down if there's someone that, someone wants to come up for. But if the board falls like this, I think I'm going to go Paris Johnson for them. He's a guy that can play tackle. Hopefully he's like your starting left tackle for the next, 10 years. But if he busts out at tackle, he probably can play guard as well. So I'm going to go Paris Johnson here unless the trade phone rings. No trade phone. We're going Paris Johnson.
Okay.
What would you have done?
I think I would have gone defense. I would have gone Tyree Wilson out of Texas Tech.
Oh, that's a good one too.
I think they got rid of Robert Quinn. They let Roquan go. They let Dave Montgomery go, and they brought in people to fill those roles, but they didn't bring anyone to bring in to rush the passer. So
you know what? I'm not gonna lie to you. I forgot that he was on the board. I full transparency. The PFF draft board that had him way
lower,
down.
Right? Yep.
Really, really messed me up there. Yeah, I it felt like there was a player missing. He's the guy. Well, can't undo it now. So alas, we go march on. And shoot, I mean, Tyree Wilson's interesting at 10.
Yeah, he
because
is.
Tyree Wilson's always, or edge guys are always interesting for the Philadelphia Eagles. Where are you going to go at 10?
He is interesting, but there's another guy on the board by the name of Bijan Robinson, running back out of Texas.
Lord.
The Eagles are going after him.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. I know, there's been a lot of rumors about getting an offensive lineman. I think there's enough depth in this draft to, pass up on a lineman at this juncture of the draft. This guy's available, future Hall of Famer for sure. We're going to be John Robinson.
I think we do. I've been saying that as much as anybody. We probably should chill out a little bit on the future Hall of Famer stuff.
All right.
Like, he's the best prospect since Peterson.
Yeah.
Which is still saying something, but he hasn't played it down yet. So
you're right.
We should probably I was saying that internally to myself when I was talking about it, and then you did it, and now I'm like, all right, hold on 1 second. All right. That puts me on the clock for the the Cardinals at 11. They could definitely go D-line. Wilson is someone they probably consider at 3. The top corners are gone. Too early for interior offensive line. I'm not going to lie. I'd probably call up New England and be like, hey, do you guys want to come up for Levis? I'd be like, hello.
Ring, ring, ring. Hello?
But I don't control the Patriots pick. So, or hey, Bill, are any interest in trading up for Levis here? No, not even. Wow, you're not even gonna speak back on the phone. Okay, all right, never mind. Thanks.
I will not speak back on the phone.
It's not bad. See, it's really not that hard of an impression. Just kind of mumble into the microphone, and then it's like, no, I'm thanks for calling. You guys really fired Cliff off into the sun, huh? You used to play for me. That wasn't very nice. But also good luck with your owner. He seems like a real piece of work. Bye.
That's pretty good.
Thank you. All right. Arizona, I gotta make a pick. I'm gonna go with Tyree Wilson. I don't feel great about it. I don't love his one-hit wonder nature, but I'm willing to take a flyer. Tyree Wilson's the pick. Which sucks for Houston because otherwise that's probably the pick for them. Well, I guess you took Anderson too,
we
so
took
probably
Anderson.
not.
I mean, we could have gone there if he was still on the board, but we're thinking future, and we're going to go with Jackson, Smith, and Jigba.
Like it.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Hey, look, we cooking, baby.
Cooking. All right. For Green Bay, I think I'm going to do exactly – well, this morning on the Junkies, I was the pick for I was the picker in their mock draft for Green Bay, and I picked Smith and Jigba for the Packers. I hate going tight end in the first round. I hate it so much less for them. Although I am definitely intrigued by some of these pass rushers. You want to know what? I'm going to stick to my draft philosophy. I'm going to say taking a tight end in the first round is silly. And so I'm going to go with the edge player that I think is, or the defensive lineman, I should say, that is best fit for them. It's a little bit of a flyer, but I'm going to take the risk on Kalijah Kancey.
My God.
His measurables, size-wise, height, weight, are scary. His measurables in terms of quickness, strength, speed, power, scary for offenses. I'm going to say that he can be a pain in the butt of the NFC North offenses for the next 7-8 years. I'm going to take a flyer on Kalijah Kancey.
So what do they do with Kenny Clark?
They play together.
All right, that's fair. It's going to look like the Commanders' interior, I guess.
But except for they're not stacked on top of each other contract-wise.
Yeah.
What a time. Seems like a good way to build a football team.
Yes, sir.
All right. That's what I'm going with.
It's my pick, and I am 14, and I will be going the Patriots. This is tough.
Do it. I dare you.
I'm not going to do it. I'm going to go with – I think I'm going to go with Lucas Van Ness, defensive end out of Iowa. I was, thinking about Nolan Smith. I just don't think in the Belichickian system he's a good fit. I think Lucas is more of a fit. I also was thinking about Levis, but I think they're going to go with Mac. I think they're going to roll with Mac. So.
I feel like Belichick's so over Mac. I would have done Levis, but that's
Levis.
all right. That's all right. Which now makes it interesting when the Commanders are on the board. All right, this makes it actually pretty easy for me. I don't feel like I've had an easy pick in a while. I'm going to take Broderick Jones for a tackle out of Georgia for the Jets at 15, which means the Commanders are on the clock. Will Levis is there. Many of the top corners not named Christian Gonzalez and Devin Witherspoon are there. Darnell Wright, Anton Harrison are there. Brian Branch is there. Who will Anthony pick? Stay tuned to find out. It's the Hoffman Show, the final mock draft of 2023 here on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. So we are doing the final mock draft of 2023. If you want to follow along and get to see the board, see the picks that have been made, you can go to youtube.com/@theteam980. You also get to see Ant in a fantastic Washington Nationals cherry blossom fedora. All right, the picks so far, as we are at 16, it is time for the Commanders. Bryce Young goes 1 to Carolina. Will Anderson 2 to Houston. Trade at 3. Tennessee goes up and gets Anthony Richardson, trading back from Arizona. C.J. Stroud goes 4 to Indy. Number 5, Jalen Carter out of Georgia to Seattle. Detroit takes Devin Witherspoon. Raiders take Peter Skoronski. Falcons take Christian Gonzalez. Paris Johnson to the Bears. Bijan Robinson to the Eagles. Tyree Wilson to the Cardinals. Jackson Smith and Jigba to Houston, their second pick, which was Cleveland's initially. Packers take Kalijah Kancey. Patriots take Lucas Van Ness. Broderick Jones, the tackle out of Georgia, to the Jets. And Anthony Haney, you, sir, are on the clock for the Commanders. What you got?
Sir, we have made multiple calls to try to trade back.
Ring. Hello?
The first team that we've called are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Okay.
And the second team that we called were the Minnesota Vikings. However, only one of those teams were willing to trade up. The Vikings from 23.
Okay, well, I control both of those teams.
Yeah, they're trading up.
So you can make your offer, but I've got to accept it because I'm the one who's in charge of both of those teams. Where do we go? The Vikings are here. Okay, sir, what would you like in this trade?
I would like to trade pick swap. 16 for 23, but also give me a third rounder in this year's draft.
Okay. As a representative for the Minnesota Vikings, I'm going to reject this trade. Not because it's not fair in terms of value. I'm not interested in trading up for Will Levis.
Okay.
It's just not the quarterback that I want, and there's no one else that I'd really be looking to trade up for. However,
Ring.
I'm all
Hello?
ears.
The Buccaneers just called back.
Okay.
Hey, can we do a trade? It's only 3 spots, so I'm going to offer you 19 and 153, which is a 4th rounder, for 16. What do you say?
A 4th.
You can
3
counteroffer.
spots. I think a 4th is fair. I like it. I mean, if it wasn't a 4th, what about a 3rd? Because that's what was on the table.
That I'd have to look at the Jimmy Johnson trade chart to see what is actually fair.
Or pick swap 3rd round picks.
Ooh, now we're talking. Yeah, I'm down for that. 19 and so you're 19, or sorry, your 16 becomes 19. My 82 becomes 97. So I move up in the first round, but back in the 3rd. I'm down for that. All right. The Tampa Bay Bucks are now on the clock at 16. We're just going to keep track of this. I'm going to still pick for Tampa here. And then I'm going to draft Will Levis at 16. So now I'm on the clock at 17 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They could use what's their right tackle situation?
Who, the Steelers?
Yeah.
Try
Try to remember real quick. Steelers depth chart. Because if they've got to need at right tackle, I know what I want to do. If their offensive line needs are elsewhere, then that's a little less. Let's see. Chukwuma Okorafor, who they drafted. Come on, internet. Back in 2018, he's a 3rd rounder. I feel like they could probably upgrade there. So I'm going to take Darnell Wright out of Tennessee. Big, nasty offensive lineman at tackle for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yeah, call that a fit. Now you're on the clock for Detroit at 18.
Okay, so at 18, so early in the draft, we got our guy Devin Witherspoon.
Sure did.
And at 18, we're going to go.
Tough.
It is. Is Nolan Smith still on the board?
He sure is.
We're going Nolan Smith.
You're going to pair him opposite Aiden Hutchinson?
Yes.
All right.
Hey,
Nolan.
look, we're trying to bolster that defense. We got some weapons on offense. We're
Sure
trying
do.
to bolster that defense.
Just don't. Probably next year, you're not really that interested, though, in in drafting a D lineman, because otherwise you wind up looking like the Commanders, and you're going to have to pay them all eventually. Just, something to keep in mind.
Yep.
Speaking of the Commanders, they're now on the clock again at 19, and you get this pick because it was originally your team.
Yes, sir. And we talked about this earlier. We're going offensive tackle here.
Okay.
And I'm going with our guy, Darnell Wright.
I already took him. He's off the board. He went at 17. The board is right in front of you.
Okay.
Yikes, bro.
Let me get that. Oh, my gosh. That hurt. At 19, the Washington Commanders will be taking
The suspense is quite literally killing me.
Deonte Banks, cornerback out of Maryland.
That is probably what I would have done as well. Anton Harrison's a really interesting one there because a lot of teams, I think, are higher on him, and potentially, I guess we'll find out, at the Commanders. But Anton Harrison is a big, honking dude. And Eric Bieniemy loves big dudes as linemen. He is a guy that is 6'4", 315. He's definitely a tackle, which does make things a little hairy. He's not going to be one of these guys that can start as a guard and then kick out, but I would consider taking him as well if that is ultimately where they pick. I mean, if I could trade down again, that would be great. But if you tell me you get Banks, a super rangy corner with a ton of upside based off of his, incredible athletic profile, a guy 6 foot, 197, 4.35 in the 40-yard dash, 42-inch vertical, 11.4 broad jump. I'm not mad at that at all. I love the Banks pick. I would love to do exactly what you did and at least better my draft position later, if not pick up an extra pick. Again, the trade we made was a swap of firsts to swap of thirds. Washington moving down in the first, up in the third. And honestly, you probably could have gotten another fifth rounder out of me or something like that, a seventh rounder. So maybe you wind up picking up a pick as well. But that's probably what I would have done as well. Not mad about that on behalf of the Commanders. All right, let's do this. Let's take a quick break, come back. We will speed through the last, 12 picks of the first round. Commanders in our draft take Deonte Banks. Anthony, let's skip what's trending. We'll get right back and finish out this draft here on The Hoffman Show. Wrapping up the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, where we are doing the final mock draft of 2023. If you see another one, it's fake. This is the last one. And if you're watching us on YouTube at youtube.com/@theteam980, you just got Anthony Haney right up in your face because Anthony was trying to look at the board to see who has been picked. Which has been a problem. I cannot wait to cut that clip for Twitter later, by the way. You gigantic goober. Anthony gets to the most important pick of the draft. The Washington Commanders select Darnell Wright, who went 2 picks earlier. Genius.
Yep.
Genius. All right, let's try to be less than 30 seconds per pick here.
Yes, sir.
If not faster than that, which probably means I need to make a decision pretty quickly.
Yep.
The Seahawks on the clock at 20. By the way, Anthony, after trading down from 16 to 19, took Deonte Banks for the Commanders. I'm on the clock for the Seahawks at 20. Oh, I will go defensive line for them. I'm going to go Miles Murphy out of Clemson.
Are you odd or even?
I'm even. Oh, shoot. That should have been your pick.
Yep.
Damn it. Because you went 19. I got tricked up. Do you want to switch or do you want to, is that okay? I mean, if that pick's not okay with you, then we're just screwed because I already submitted it. But my bad on that.
Nah, I mean, I think that's a cool pick.
Okay. Do you want me to then just pick up with the Chargers at 21?
Yep, go ahead.
All right. They definitely could use wide receiver help. Jordan Addison's been linked there a lot. I do think the kid out of TCU, Quentin Johnston, super interesting for them. He's big, and they've tended to love big. Actually, you know what? Screw it. Forget what everyone's been saying. Everyone's been doing Addison. I'm going Johnston. He's the best run-after-catch guy. I trust Herbert to get him the ball. They like big receivers. I'm going to go Johnston.
Good. You're going Johnston. I'm going Jordan Addison. Line that boy up in the slot. Get my man Lamar Jackson another weapon. There were rumors D-Hop was possibly going to be headed to Baltimore, but nope. We're taking Jordan Addison.
By the way, if you're just coming out of a skiff or something and you haven't heard the news, Lamar Jackson today signed a 5-year extension with the Ravens worth $260 million, $185 million in guarantees. So he now gets another weapon there. All right, on the clock for the Vikings. They could definitely use a receiver as well, but they also could use a corner. And Joey Porter Jr. is still on the board. He's probably the best one still there. I know Forbes is really intriguing. I'm going to go Joey Porter Jr., though, for Minnesota and fill that corner spot. They hoped Cam Dantzler would fill. Ultimately, they let him go, just a third-round pick, I believe, a couple years ago. But he's now here, and so Joey Porter Jr. goes there.
That's a great pick. 24, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Considering what just happened to Cam Robinson, I'm looking or thinking that we go offensive line here. And I really like the guy out of Florida, the guard, Osiris Torrance.
Ooh,
for the Jacksonville
interesting.
Jaguars.
So you got big money right guard. You put Osiris Torrance at left guard.
Yes,
I don't
sir.
hate that. All right. The Giants, they could use a lot of varying stuff. They could use a safety, though. And the best safety on the board is still available. Now, he might be more of a nickel player. He might do some different stuff. They had to bring Landon Collins back last year to kind of fill that role, which makes me think they perhaps might go another safety out of Alabama. I'm going to go Brian Branch for the Giants.
Oh, you going Brian Branch. Okay. So that means the Cowboys are on the board. Dalton Schultz is out the door. So we need someone to fill that void. And
You got your
personally,
pick.
I'm going with Michael Mayer.
That's
I know
your
it's
guy.
been a lot of guys, Dalton Kincaid, linked to them, but I'm going Michael Mayer, Gronk 2.0.
I've seen
the
Mayer
Dallas.
linked to them a lot. All right, so that leaves me with the Bills. They just lost their middle linebacker, did they not? I'm not making that up.
Yep, Tremaine Edmonds.
Yeah,
is gone.
Tremaine Edmonds just left. Where did he wind up signing again?
He's with the Bears.
That's right. Trenton Simpson, PFF hates him. He's ranked 71. I've seen him linked here a lot. I'm just going to go with it. I'm going to go with kind of conventional wisdom here. Trenton Simpson, the linebacker out of Clemson, going to the Bills at 27. You're on the clock at 28.
28.
That's the Bengals, by the way. I should
Yes, sir.
say that. Good radio hosting.
I think they need some more defensive back help. So I'm going to go with, and it might be a bit of a, I'm going to go with Forbes. I'm
Okay.
going with Forbes.
I don't think it's a reach there. I don't think it's a reach at all. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes higher. I considered him certainly for the Vikings. I think you probably considered him for the Commanders at both 16 and 19. But Forbes at 28 feels like a steal. I also would have considered for them Anton Harrison, getting them some offensive line help. It feels like they've needed it forever. Saints at 29, I will say that does hurt me a little bit, as there's not necessarily a guy that totally makes sense. Man. Saints, there was a guy.
Homegrown talent.
Who are you thinking?
Brian Brzee.
He's probably the right pick. There is a kid out of, where do they have him listed? They have him listed as an edge? What am I? Oh, I did interior offensive lineman instead of interior defensive lineman. That's what I wanted. Brian Brzee. You know, there's a kid who's an edge player out of, I want to say it's TCU, that Logan loves for them. Adebaware. He just is like that. His comp is Cam Jordan. And I'm tempted to do that, but Brzee is probably more conventionally what people are looking for them. So I will play along, and I will go Brian Brzee out of Clemson.
You going Brian? Yes, sir. At number 30, the Eagles. We took Bijan Robinson earlier. Said we were going to wait on a lineman. We're going with Anton Harrison, tackle out of Oklahoma. Sit behind
Lane Johnson for
a year or two, and then step right on in and help solidify that line some more.
What's crazy is their last offensive lineman they took in the first round just sat and wound up never playing for them, and he just signed a monster deal in Tennessee this offseason.
Yep.
I'm just going to go, again, kind of conventional wisdom here. Everyone has said Will McDonald is going to Kansas City. It's just kind of the guy who's been linked there, so I'm going to just go that. Although, you know what? No, I'm not. I'm going to throw a curveball at the end of this. Zay Flowers is one of the most interesting guys to me in this draft. He is a playmaker out of Boston College. Give Patrick Mahomes a playmaker. I'm going to go with Zay Flowers.
Fantastic pick.
So that is the draft. It starts off with Bryce Young. Then you get Anderson, Richardson, Stroud, Carter, Witherspoon, Skoronski, Gonzalez, Paris Johnson, Bijan Robinson, Tyree Wilson, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Kalijah Cansey, Lucas Van Ness, Broderick Jones, Will Levis, Darnell Wright, Nolan Smith, Deontay Banks to the Commanders at 19 after a trade, Miles Murphy, Quentin Johnston, Jordan Addison, Joey Porter Jr. to Minnesota, Osiris Torrance, Brian Branch in the division to the Giants, Michael Meyer to the Cowboys, Trenton Simpson, Emmanuel Forms, Brian Brzee, Anton Harrison, Zay Flowers, final pick of the first round. If we wanted to get a little crazy, we probably could have had someone trade back up for Hendon Hooker, but we didn't. That is ultimately where we land. All right, Anthony, last order of business before we get to real things, if we even get to real things today. Actually, I'm probably just going to punt on real things for today. Your prediction for what actually happens tonight for the Commanders, fire away.
So I'm thinking the Commanders, I think we do trade back. It's just a matter of like where. Again, I think the Buccaneers, the Vikings are two teams that will be willing to trade up for a quarterback.
I really hope the Vikings actually love Hooker as much as they claim to, and that Hooker and Levis, if not, and Richardson are all on the board. Because if Stroud falls, that's where it gets fun. That's the best thing that can happen for Washington tonight is Stroud just plummets for some reason down the board.
My best guess is going to be Richardson that ends up falling a little bit. But that's best case scenario. We trade back and we get Darnell Wright, offensive tackle out of Tennessee.
I don't think Richardson falls. I would, if I was going to make like one bold prediction, it's that Richardson gets drafted top 10. I just think there's too much talent and there's too many people that like his character. And if you've got talent and you've got character, what's there not to like? Like, obviously there's like mental processing speed, accuracy. Like there's a lot of things that go into playing quarterback, but some of that stuff can be coached. And if he really wants to be good and he's got that much talent, Like, I honestly would have a really hard time passing on him at 16 if I'm Washington, if I think he's that dedicated to being great at this. So I think he's going to wind up going in the top 10. All right. As for what I think happens, I'm going to stick to my guns on Banks. I think it winds up being Deontay Banks in one form or another. If they do stay at 16, though, I like the Darnell Wright prediction. Love for it to be Paris Johnson, but the rumors are he's going to wind up going 3 to Arizona. And if Arizona trades out, it's probably not going to be past 16. So that would mean that they would have a chance to get him probably then. We'll find out. Scott Jackson, Denton Day, have your NFL draft coverage next, and we'll see you tomorrow to react here on the Team 980.
The Team 980 is always live.